Hello, welcome to our assembly. It's Wednesday, and I hope. Well, no, not. I hope you've been having a lovely week. I know you've been having a lovely week because I've seen some of the really amazing work that you've done. I've seen ridiculously hard maths in Squirrels class and in Dragonflies class. I've seen amazing writing from Oaks. I've seen all sorts of stuff going on. You've been absolutely brilliant. So well done. I just got ready for my assembly and got my book ready on the screen that I'm going to read to you, and turn my music off. And I've been listening to some music, and I was thinking about the global goals because that's what obviously our theme is for our assemblies this week. And thinking that the song I was listening to was called "People Every Day," and it's by a band called Arrested Development. And this was a big hit a really long time ago. I think when I was about 17 or 18, so like thousands of years ago. And then I was thinking about what that song actually was and what it meant. And the song was kind of about one of the global goals. It was about reducing inequalities because the song is actually about racism and about how it doesn't matter what race, what color our skin is, what religion we are, everybody should be treated in exactly the same way. So it's really cool to think that there's bands like who are really famous at the time who are talking about these things and trying to share their message through music, and that's a really good way to share a message. But on the other hand, it's sad that they actually have to do it, because we know at Wincham that it doesn't matter what you look like, it doesn't matter what colour your skin is or what you believe in, that everybody is welcome here. And that's one of the points of our No Outsiders work, and one of the points of that global goal, reducing inequalities. So completely random thought that just popped into my head, but I thought I'd share it with you. What I'm going to do in the assembly today, this is kind of, it's to do with the global goals. It's to do with life underwater. Okay. And it's easy for us to say, let's not pollute the water. Let's not throw stuff in the rubbish that might get put into the oceans. And that's easy. That kind of makes sense. We know that one. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you a story about a man who really believed that, who thought it was really important, but so important that he went on to explore about it. So there's lots of reasons for me using this book. So one, it gives us a bit more information about life underwater. Two, it's a story about a really inspirational person. And we've had lots of stories in assemblies about inspirational people. And it's really cool to look at somebody and go, wow, they really found something interesting and worked hard at understanding it and making it their life's work. Okay, so that's really cool. Three, it's just a great book and the illustrations are amazing and I want you to enjoy the pictures. And four, it's a treat for me, because when I was teaching year 6, it was one of my favorite books to use with the children. And I would spend 6 or 7 weeks using this book and doing loads and loads of work about it, loads of writing, loads of artwork and all sorts of stuff. I love it. And I saw the book and thought, you know what? I really want to share that with the children at Wincham. So it's just a treat for me. That's all it is for this one. So let me share my screen with you. Let's see if... got the right one, and share, and here we go. The book is Manfish, a story about a famous guy called Jacques Cousteau, and it's written by Jennifer Byrne and illustrated by Eric Piberet. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Okay, but I just love these illustrations. So let's have a read. Manfish, the story of Jacques Cousteau. Bubbles rising through the silence of the sea, silvery beads of breath from a man deep down, in a strange and shimmering ocean land of swaying plants and fantastic creatures. A manfish, swimming, diving into the unknown, exploring underwater worlds no one had ever seen and no one could ever have imagined. So a really lovely start to the book with a bit of poetry. Our story starts many years before in France with a little baby boy born under the summer sun. His parents named him Jacques. From the very beginning, little Jacques loved water, the way it felt on his hands, his face, his body, and water made him wonder. He wondered why ships floated, why he floated, and why rocks sank. So he's looking at something that he's found in the world and just gone, why does that work like that? He's shown curiosity. And actually, we've spent loads of time talking about mindfulness and kind of appreciating where you are and really enjoying being in the moment. What Jacques is doing is exactly that. He's saying, I am here now in this fantastic place, and I want to find out even more about it, not thinking about the next thing and the next thing and the next thing to do. One day, Jacques read a story about a man who hid underwater by breathing through a long tube. Jacques tried it and discovered it was impossible. But he dreamed that someday he would be able to breathe underwater for real. At night, Jacques dreamt he could fly, with the birds among the clouds, with his arms stretched out like wings. Jacques spent his days playing, experimenting, and creating. He wrote little books that he illustrated with his own drawings, and he was fascinated by machines. He studied blueprints and built a model of a crane that was as tall as he was and actually worked. So he really did work hard at this and tried to improve his skills. Movies fascinated Jacques too. He wanted to know how they were made, how the cameras worked, and how chemicals made pictures appear on the film. Jacques saved his allowance penny by penny until he had enough to buy a small home movie camera. And the first thing he did was take it apart and put it back together, because this was in the days before everything could be recorded on a camera, on a phone. And then he began to film everything around him. He put his brother, cousins, parents, and friends in his movies. He dressed up as a villain with a painted-on moustache and made some very villainous films. Jacques was always the star, the director, the writer, and usually the cameraman. So he's developing lots of interests, and he's actually learning lots from it. When Jacques finished school, he joined the French Navy. His ships sailed all around the world, and everywhere he went, he filmed what he saw. In China, he filmed men catching fish with their bare hands. They held their breath underwater for many minutes. Jacques wondered what that would be like. Imagine several minutes holding your breath. That's really, really hard. One day at a beach, a friend gave Jacques a pair of goggles with rubber frames and glass to look through. Jacques wore them into the ocean. And beneath the water, he was surrounded by silvery forests of sea plants and fish he'd never seen before. Everything was silent and shimmering. It was a whole new world. When he came up, he saw cars, people, buildings, and telephone poles. Once again, he went below into the magical underwater world. At that moment, Jacques knew his life was changed forever. His eyes had been opened to the wonders of the sea. So, like I said right at the start, you've got some, these global goals are not new. We haven't called them global goals, but people have been talking about this, been excited about this, been thinking about this for a really, really long time. Jacques and his friends, Philippe and Didi, began to dive together. They experimented to see how long they could stay underwater and how deep they could go. Jacques created a waterproof case for his camera to film the amazing kingdom he and his friends were exploring beneath the surface. They made rubber suits to keep themselves warm and flippers to help them kick better. But Jacques wanted to stay down longer than just one breath at a time. He realized he needed to take more air with him, enough air to explore the mysterious depths and vast expanses of the ocean, to swim through the sea as free as a fish. He wanted to become a man-fish, and he began to work on just how to do it. On a warm summer day, Jacques stepped into the blue Mediterranean Sea with his new invention. He called it the aqualung, because aqua means water, and our lungs are part of our body that holds the air we breathe. Below the surface, Jacques swam and glided and dove. He did flips and somersaults. He stood upside down on one finger and laughed bubbles into the sea. Jacques could breathe beneath the water. Now he could swim across miles of ocean, his body feeling what only scales had felt, his eyes seeing what only fish had seen. The water made him feel like he was flying, just like in his dreams. Jacques had done it. He had become a man-fish. Jacques was ready to explore the oceans of the world. He needed a boat and found a big old wooden navy ship named Calypso. In a year, he turned it from a warship into an explorer ship. Jacques, Philippe, and Didi gathered a crew, their aqualungs, their hopes and their dreams, and set off to explore the inside of the sea, to film a world that no one had seen before. On their journeys, they dove deep into a seascape of plants, green and purple prickly plants, red branchy plants, spongy plants, wispy, feathery, swaying plants, slow dancing to the rhythms of the sea. They discovered plants that could feed you, plants that could poison you, plants that looked like fish, and fish that looked like plants. They swam with giant whales, hitched rides on sea turtles, and made friends with porpoises with shining eyes and smiling faces. They filmed fierce and frightening sharks, so strange and dangerous, Jacques and his crew had to build cages, not for the sharks, but for themselves, so they could make their movies without being eaten. Their cameras captured camouflaged scorpionfish, ugly as toads with poisonous spines, dorados, brilliant fish that glowed the colours of emeralds, sapphires, and rubies, checkerboard fish with red and white checks from head to tail. Deep down, they discovered a kingdom of giant rays, fish that fly through the water with wings that swim. They came face to face with a fish as big as a truck, with long fangs, lips like giant tires, and huge saucer eyes. They called it the truck fish. On the bottom, they found pink ghost crabs with eyes on long stalks, buried so deep in the sand they looked like a garden of eyes, and flute fish, with heads like horses and bodies the shape of tubes, sticking out of rocky openings like pencils in a cup. Everywhere the Calypso went, Jacques and his crew made films of what they saw, films that played in movie theatres, films that played on TV. Millions of people all over the world discovered the wonders of the sea for the very first time with Jacques, Philippe, Didi, and their adventurous crew. After Jacques spent most of his life making movies about the sea, he saw something happening, something shocking. Plants that used to be alive and healthy were being poisoned. Fish were sick and dying. Jacques saw that people, without realizing it, were slowly killing the sea and its creatures by dumping garbage and poisonous chemicals into the ocean he loved so much. Jacques knew what he had to do. He had to make movies, movies to warn people, movies to save the sea. Jacques also spoke to presidents, to kings and queens, to people all over the earth, asking them to help save our oceans, our planet. And he spoke to children. Jacques dreamt that someday it would be you, exploring worlds never seen, never imagined. Whole new worlds, silent and shimmering, worlds that are now yours to discover, to care for, and to love. So, Jacques Cousteau was this amazing person, somebody who protected the planet, protected its creatures. He was an inventor, a poetic writer, a filmmaker, and a photographer, and he was really curious about everywhere he went. And his rallying cry where he went was, "We must go and see for ourselves," which is just such a good way to think about the world. We should go and see. We shouldn't read it. We should go and find out. So I really, really love that book. I really love it because I've always enjoyed teaching using it. But also, Jacques was so curious about everything that he did, about everything that happened around him. And he was so passionate about it. So I hope that you have enjoyed the story. I hope that you've enjoyed looking at the pictures. And I hope that you've taken some of the messages about it, about looking after life under the water. But also, I hope that you can have a think about what's around you. I've talked to quite a few people this this last week or so while we've been talking about global goals, who've said that they've done things at home, or they've talked to parents about things, about the global goals, about climate action, about life on land, and they've done things themselves, which is brilliant. Well done. Don't stop. Don't stop just because our global goals time will come to an end. Keep doing that, just like Jacques did. And maybe you could be somebody who talks to presidents and kings and queens when you're a grown-up as well. Have a lovely rest of the day, guys. I'll see you around. Bye-bye.